So what I wanted to know, Mark, was what you were telling me about how the distributive or uncentralized government,
Hmm.
and there would be nodes.
Think of the mycelium network
Okay.
and how there are nodes throughout that network, and there's no real leader. They're just a bunch of intelligent nodes that are there to serve the whole. And they deliver what's needed in what form, when, and where it's needed, and only store things if it looks like they're going to need to store things. Like if a drought is anticipated, or if there's a fire and they don't want to store the water, they want to shift the water toward the trees that need it.
Okay, so now these nodes are they like entities, or are they just like just connected in many, many ways?
Yeah. Well, it's connected very much like the internet was designed originally. The layers that got built on top of the internet were more like our socio-political architectures. But the gateways, routers, and bridges that made up the original internet were a decentralized, intelligent network, right? And it was very resilient. It was designed that way to survive a nuclear bomb, right? Route around it as necessary, until healed. But we put our social structures on top of it, which led to the tech giants and control factors over the decentralized network. So we're building new networks that build that decentralization into it. So that's Holochain and other things like Holochain Threefold and a variety of new networks.
Now I have a friend. Oh, he knows about you. His name is Hatton, Christopher Hatton.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah, I know Chris. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Here in Michigan, isn't he?
well, he moved to Albuquerque. He just
Mm.
had a baby.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
So his life is in transition for sure.
No, yeah.
But anyway, he tells me about things that you're talking about.
Yeah, Chris and I had only one talk, I think. We were hoping to have more talks, but he got busy, evidently.
Well, and he every time he sees me do something with your face or your image, he mentions you, and he thinks highly of you, as we all do. Or I don't
Oh,
know,
thanks.
but I do. So okay, so let me see if I understand this. So in our world, I would say there would be people that are concerned about particular specific areas. Well, like this guy, I was watching a guy on the Money Free Party, and he was talking about you would have someone who is an expert, or people who are study and do all this stuff about the air, the water, the earth, different aspects of things that we need to survive would all be monitored, and the information then would be distributed to us, and we would all, it would be open source, and we would all know what was going on, and then we could make proper decisions based on the information that these people take their time to gather for us,
Mm-hmm.
with the consideration of our best good.
Exactly. Yeah, design like nature does. Look at the models nature uses for networking and copy those, and don't go any further. Just, work in harmony with nature instead of trying to control it or think you have a better idea. It's been
Right.
doing it a lot longer.
And it does. I mean, I'm amazed by nature. I mean,
Mm.
the plants and the way things grow, and and if there's a crack in the sidewalk, something's going to grow out of it. I mean,
It's amazing.
it is. And it goes on, and it doesn't need me, or it doesn't care. Well, it needs me to breathe some carbon dioxide.
Well, you do contribute to the whole in that regard. And humans like to move things. And if we understood why move something somewhere that would benefit the whole, but we don't pay attention to like what minerals are needed for this, this part of the garden or this part of the, forest, or there's a source of pollution because we moved something too close to water, or we go about not just moving things, but we kill a lot of things indiscriminately. Things like the antibiotics of our, most used pesticide, or antifungal elements of, glyphosate also. Things like that. When we put that into the soil or onto our crops, and it gets into our water system, and it creates such a toxic exterior environment, even for us, not just for the soil life, which passes nutrients, converts minerals into something we can use. So breaking down that cycle by going to war with, certain things we don't see a purpose for. But nature always has and nature is trying to find this dynamic equilibrium between inner and outer world. And we go messing it up just because we don't see the reason for this. We don't see the reason for the weeds. Why do the weeds come in? Why do the bugs attack these plants? Why? Well, because they're weak, because we didn't give them what they needed. So they all have a purpose. There's no waste in nature. It just keeps finding a dynamic equilibrium with its environment. And what happens when things get out of equilibrium, and I use that instead of balance, because balance can be seen as a static when life is anything but static, unless you're referring to consciousness, which is a static, but everything else is moving. So everything else is dynamic. When nature tries to find this equilibrium, and we've made the outside environment so hostile to inside, what happens is that the bacteria and the fungi, they create things called viruses. And viruses pass that DNA, that the genetics of this toxic thing that's attacking, and they pass that along to us so that our bodies can then become more resilient to that toxin. So it's trying to teach us that our outside environment has become dangerous. It's trying to give us the information so that our bodies can adjust to that toxic environment. And if it's too much of a change, if it's too toxic, the host is dead, right? We kill, the host died. But if we can build up an immunity to that toxic environment, then we've upgraded our DNA. And that's what viruses do. They help us upgrade our DNA to a toxic environment.
Okay, I finally understand that. I've heard people say that before, and now I understand.
That's why some people like myself who, really work on getting their system in really strong shape, immunity-wise and so forth. I certainly don't get sick very often, and I haven't been sick over the last 4 years. So throughout this whole thing, I've been around people who've been exposed or have contracted this virus, even if it was engineered. If it was engineered with a gain-of-function process to help introduce, something, people forget that man is part of nature also. And so if you can build an immunity to these things, you're not likely to get sick at all. And I've been exposed to dozens of people that have had this various strains of this latest go-around. I didn't suffer any symptoms whatsoever.
Well, I have a theory that this won't, what you're saying is it'll never end because it's part of the natural process.
Yeah, but people will get more immune to it if they change their own systems, right? Their own systems are degraded based on, our food is banned in over 30 countries from the U.S. It's banned for a reason. It's now no oddity that this virus started in a particular area of China that has the most highly used aspect of glyphosate in the world. They spray more glyphosate on their crops in China in this particular province than anywhere else in the world. Now that gets not only into the food for the hog farms, which the hog farms are the largest hog farms are in China, in this province, but it gets into the water, and then the hogs eat the glyphosate, get sick, and then their waste gets into these hog ponds, the water, their sewage ponds, and that creates these viruses dramatically. And the virus, because of the bacteria and the fungi in the waste of the pig.
So I'm thinking that, when this happened, I saw it as a wake up for humanity. we need to stop what we're doing. It's not
Stop
good.
warring. And when
And,
we did pause, when we
and it
did
cleared
stop
up.
business as usual, things cleared up. Yeah.
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 But then, well, you saw what I saw. The
Yeah.
powers that be wanted to continue the status quo and
Yeah.
convinced everybody that we needed to go back the way it was.
Yeah.
Convinced enough people.
Yeah.
But on the
Who
other
were
hand,
longing to get back to business as usual,
right,
unfortunately, and so
right.
went along with the restrictions, but they didn't change the core habits. They keep eating conventional foods, and so when you keep eating conventional foods that have all this antibiotic, antifungal, anti-life chemical spread on them, especially the grains for wheat and breads and things like that. They use it for as a desiccant. They use glyphosate as a desiccant on the foods to help dry them once they're harvested, to help dry them rapidly so that they don't spoil. And so it's no wonder we've had so many allergies and other symptoms and weakened immune systems, not only leaky gut, but leaky brain. The blood-brain barrier has been compromised by this. If we don't change the way we eat, then you're going to continue to suffer the consequences or evolve slowly to be more immune to it. But it seems silly, especially when now glyphosate is in our rainwater.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, it's water soluble. So the water cycle puts a lot of it up in the atmosphere. And so, yeah, some of us have gotten used to it already, right? We've already done it, even though I haven't been eating conventional foods for decades. So I kind of kept my immune system fairly intact.
What kind of food do you eat?
Well, I don't eat anything now. I've been a breatharian this year. So I was a vegan for a couple decades, and I ate nothing but organic foods and foods that I knew where they were grown. If I'd go to the market, I would only, pick certain brands in certain produce. When I went to the farmer's market, I knew how they grew their crops. So I've maintained a healthy system. Breatharianism is something I don't like talking about yet so much because I want to do it for a couple of years before I start showing people this really can be done, where you can live an incredibly healthy life without eating food or drinking. It's just an application of quantum information physics. And we'll get to exactly how that works. Once I've tuned it exactly, I'm doing really, really well. Whenever I breathe in water, I breathe in through the memory of water from this mountain spring I found up in the high Sierras, right? That was the clearest, cleanest, slipperiest water most vital water I've ever had the privilege to consume. And so what I do when I breathe in my moisture, I breathe in through that memory, which changes the quantum information outside into the quantum information of that water going through that memory. So whenever I breathe in, I'm breathing in the same water that was in that stream. And so I can control my water cycle very, in the beginning of this, when I stopped drinking water, I was still getting water through showers or getting out for a walk in the rain.
Right.
But that's crappy water. The rainwater is not so bad, but the shower water is city water, and
Right.
that's got all kinds of chemicals in it that actually dehydrate you more than they hydrate you, mostly because of the way the water's treated. When you've been in water, like in a chlorine pool or in a bath or in a shower for a long time, and your fingers start to get wrinkly,
Yeah.
that's your fingers actually becoming dehydrated. So water is not that healthy. So whenever I do take a shower, I'm very cognizant and very mindful of, like blessing the water as it comes in, picturing again through memories of when I took that solar shower, again, up in the, 12,000 feet up in the mountains, right? Just, that's wonderful. That water heated by the sun was, from the lake up at, 11,000 feet up in the high Sierras. I love the Chigupa Plateau, Sequoia National Park, one of my favorite places.
So I think I won't publish this, but this is very interesting because you said you don't want to talk about it until you know more about it. So
no, I want to be able to take it to Western medicine. I've got some doctors I'm courting on would they be interested in conducting a verification of it. And all I would ask for would be a room with a nice, all my computer systems. That's all. As long as I have my systems that I can stay in communication. I have plenty of memories of what it's like to walk in the woods twice a day and go tracking. I have all of those memories and experiences that I can filter through my breathing. And as long as there's some air, I might be able to even get beyond that, but we'll see.
Wow, this is amazing. So it sounds to me like everything you need is in the air, but it's in your thought process.
It's actually not in the air, it's in the quantum field. All the information that makes up our air, our water, our solids, our materials, anything observable, anything that's experienced comes from quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. Now, what informs that infinite potential is the quantum information that's applied to that. And so this is why the double slit experiment does what it does. When the observer observes the wave pattern, it turns into a particle instead of the wave. It represents as a particle instead of a wave. It's actually both, but if it's observed, it turns into something we can observe. What is informing that experience is the observer, it's consciousness, bringing it into a particular form. That's why the placebo works. It's why the nocebo works. The belief informs the outcome. That's why we're having so much problems in science today with replicating experiments, is because even though they're following the experiment to the letter, if the person conducting or the team conducting the experiment has a different perspective, a different belief, a different hypothesis, well, it's not going to be replicated because it's going to come out in a different form. They're going to influence the outcome. And so science is having a problem with, it's called a replication crisis. And it's because quantum physics and a diversity of outcome is experienced. And it's just science catching up with quantum mechanics. That's all. And quantum information physics.
So what you're saying is with your thought process or whatever it is that our thoughts are, you can manipulate the quantum field to be what you are thinking or experiencing inside.
That's right. Well, I filter it through the mind, right? I filter, which everything is filtered through the mind. Consciousness filtering through the mind produces form. That's how we interpret things, is through the mind. Now, it's also how we color our expression, mind. How consciousness expresses itself goes through the same filters. We accumulate these filters with beliefs, conditioning, education, trauma. That forms the mind, right? So experience coming through the field is influenced by that mind. I just consider a clear mind to start with and put the memories that I'd like to filter through, all that quantum information coming through that filter of the spring, up in the mountains, or the most vital day I've ever experienced, right? Or the most energy, I've ever had, or the best food I've ever eaten, And I've been to 28 countries, so I have great samples of some of the most healthy, delicious foods I could find, right? Now I have all those memories, so I can breathe through that anytime I feel the request from the microbiome that I try to garden like a gardener, right? I look at what does it need? it needs some sunlight. I'm breathing now through a volleyball tournament I was in, right? That was just such wonderful sun and activity and energy and joy and, very fun. Something I'm going to really get good at. And then I will do some of my own trials to see, okay, what kind of environment can I do this in? And I'm practicing. I live in a basement again, a basement without windows. So it doesn't require sun, although I still get out for my walks in nature because that wouldn't be considered cheating. But I'd have to go with somebody if I was being monitored. And I don't want to have to make that a requirement. So I'll be going through some periods where I go for, several months without my walks in nature and see if I can maintain my healing of the body. Because I'm actually reverting my genetics back to an earlier version, an earlier blueprint. Because I've been doing some
we're always creating, right? I mean, we're always regenerating.
We're always creating. We might as well go off of an earlier blueprint, one that was before some of the traumas. And so I exchange with my younger body. I exchange with my younger version of this incarnation. I exchange knowledge, wisdom, and insight for genetic information. So I pass knowledge, wisdom, and insight back to my younger self. And I use music, songs that I listened to and really appreciated when I was growing up. I use that music to inspire my younger self with insight and knowledge and wisdom. So when I listen to it then, I'm listening to it with all this encoded information. And it mitigates future traumas. It mitigates some of the misinformation that I was fed growing up, alleviates the aspects of mind that I lived with for many years. So it kind of reprograms that. Yeah, makes the mind clearer, sharper, plus all the added wisdom I got because I fed my younger self. I kind of cheated growing up. I had a coach all along, right? I had a sage whispering in my ear saying, hey, you could go and study this now, and you'll do well. I always did well in school. I was reading at a young age. Well, now I know why. I was talking at a very young age. I know why. I was coaching my unborn self. I was orienting myself in the womb by listening to music that my parents were playing in code orientation, like what my human design is and what my gene key profile is going to be. So you'll have these gifts coming in that will make it really easy for you to operate for your mission, which is to help people wake up.
I'm thinking about waking up is like, it's still asleep.
Yeah,
relative to where you're talking about.
You can do this for yourself as well. It's never too late. Time is not what you think it is. And it is retrocausal effects, which are definitely a thing. We've seen this happen. There was even a conference on retrocausality I think it was in Bonn, Germany, several months ago. We're doing this all the time. We have the Time Machine app, which you can find at the Institute for Love and Time. That was developed to send unconditional love to your younger self when you needed it.
A lot of the stuff that I did with my men's group and stuff was about re-nurturing that younger self, reframing those wounds into
lessons.
Positive.
Right. You can learn from them much quicker if you have a coach that's been through them. And now you can go back and say, oh, okay, here, this lesson, and it becomes much less traumatic. You've already learned the lesson. You've already healed the imprints on the mind. And once you have that done, and it's all within consciousness. So this stuff works. It seems magic, but it's just understanding consciousness and quantum information physics. That's all it is. Once you understand consciousness, the mind, and quantum information physics, you can change just about everything.
So you can move them out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you can perceive other dimensions better. And you can gain even more insight and perceive more. And start to perceive the energy fields and start to understand what's obscuring this, what's causing the shadow.
Yes, what's causing the shadow. Well, Mark, I'd spend more than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know what I'm going to read. I'm going to watch the video. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Very good. Very good.
So thank you. And
you're so welcome.